Not everyone loves to socialize, and I'm one of them. Hi, I'm Kyle Kittleson. I'm the host at MedCircle, joined by fellow introvert clinical psychologist, Dr. Ramani. Dr. Ramani, your idea and my idea of a vacation is to be left alone in our hotel room with room service on
That's
speed
right.
dial.
That's right.
Uh, Not everyone feels that way. And while you and I might think that it's perfectly fine and healthy, and it probably is, there are those who take this need or this want to be away from society and from social scenarios, and it can become debilitating. When does social anxiety become a real concern?
So let's be clear on a couple of things first. Wanting to be alone and not wanting to socialize is not social anxiety. So there we're talking more about a personality style called introversion. And introversion has never gotten the attention it deserves. It's always viewed as extroversion. And it's more than that. We live in a society that values extroversion. So the introverts are often sort of bringing up the rear and feeling like, oh, I'm the person who doesn't want to go out. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just what people need and what people want, and to sort of make space with that. I recently talked with someone who had the insight. He said, I spent some time, and the pandemic has definitely doubled down on all, like it's sort of the introverts are actually holding it together a bit better because being alone isn't taking as much of a toll on them. But he said to me, after all these years, I finally recognized that I'm really most at peace being alone. And he's like, I look at a lifetime of relationships where I was kind of getting frustrated because somebody always wanted a piece of me, and I didn't want to be that person. It's not a socially anxious person. Actually, it's a job where he's in front of people a lot, but realize he just does find more peace, solace, and enjoyment being alone. And you and Kyle, you and I know this. We know people out there. If they were told you have to spend the whole weekend alone, they would start crying. And like, I can't do that. I need to be with my friends. It would be very unsettling for them. And so we've got to always remember wanting to be alone isn't necessarily social anxiety, because there's extroverts out there who are socially anxious. So it's not
Mm.
the drive to be out there. It's what happens when a person is with other people or they think about being with other people. And one of the key elements of social anxiety is the fear that one will be criticized, negatively judged, harshly evaluated. And so they hold back. And so social situations, even if they crave them, become very uncomfortable. Like they want to be with other people, they want to go to the party, but the idea that they will be scrutinized, criticized, evaluated, and more importantly, that they will mess it up makes these situations really, really fraught. And that's
Mhm.
when we start getting into the realm of social anxiety.
Now, when does social anxiety really ramp up to severe social anxiety?
So a lot of people out there are listening to this and saying, I don't know. I kind of get a little bit like tongue tied when I'm with new people. Do I have social anxiety? We go back to that ring where I say every time social and occupational impairment. I think a lot of us have a little social anxiety, a little social anxiety.
But really explain that, because the social and occupational impairment, you have to experience that in order for this to be classified as a disorder.
So
Yes.
we think like you are so socially anxious that you are missing events in your life, like not going to a wedding or refusing to do a toast at someone's wedding and it's meaningful to them. You are missing out on job promotion opportunities because the next level up means that you might have to be putting yourself more in sales presentations or speaking to groups. So it's holding you back. This fear is holding you back. It may make it that a person who actually says, I want to get into a long-term relationship, or I want to have a family, but their social anxiety is even debilitating their ability to go out there and meet possible partners.
Yeah.
Those are the things we'd mean as the social and occupational kind of an impairment.
Yes. And when someone's experiencing this type of severe social anxiety, what are the consequences to that? I mean, some of them are pretty obvious, but what should people be expecting?
So when a person's experiencing severe social anxiety, you'll see that there's actually almost a physiological discomfort. They might find that they sweat more when they're with other people. They'll feel more lightheaded. They might feel tension through headaches or muscle tension. They might feel stomach upset. Like they'll really feel all of the kinds of physiological symptoms of worry or nervousness or anxiety. You'll see that a person will try to avoid these situations in any which way. They might even feign illness or cancel at the last minute or endure the situation with tremendous anxiety saying, they're white knuckling it. They can see that they're uncomfortable. They're laughing in a way that seems uncomfortable. They really are sort of embarrassed by how they're conducting themselves. And this sets up a very interesting risk, which is alcohol use. One of the things that breaks through social anxiety is drinking. And believe it or not, it actually can get out of hand for more than a handful of people with social anxiety who will say, hey, I could be the life of the party if I drink. So every time they do, especially if a younger person is still out going, meeting people and all of that, they go out, they go to the happy hour, they drink too much. They go to a party, they drink too much. And then the non-drinking version of themselves still retains the social anxiety. They're sort of self-medicating with alcohol. If they do that enough, it could actually become a real problem.
Yes, a really good reminder. Dr. Ramani has some wonderful series, both on anxiety, understanding the anxious self, the name of that series, and also one on introversion. Both are great follow-ups to this discussion. We'll link to both of them below, but for now, here's an inside look into Dr. Ramani's series on anxiety. Take a look. In order to be an expert on any mental health topic, you have to fully understand anxiety.
Absolutely. You don't understand anxiety, you don't understand mental health. And in fact, it's really where Freud made his name. Freud's theories were all very much focused on anxiety, on worry, on rumination. So it's really been sort of the beginnings of our field in terms of how we do therapy. And since then, we've learned so much about anxiety, and yet it still plagues many of us. We sort of live in times when anxiety is always present. The question is, how do we prevent it? How do we manage it? How do we treat it? That's going to be different depending on the various issues we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, we answer all those questions in this series, and so I'm really excited about that. Why is it, though, so important for anybody, whether they think they have anxiety themselves, whether they know or don't know somebody with anxiety, to learn this information?
A big reason is because, as I said, anxiety is often the reason someone gets into the door of a therapist's office. They're anxious because they don't know what's happening in their relationship. They're anxious because they can't solve a problem in their life. They're so anxious they feel like they can't date. You know, there's a whole range of reasons why people enter a therapist's office. I'd say in most cases it often relates to anxiety. Number two, a lot of people don't know how much worry is too much worry. How much worry is just sort of the regular worry of life. You know, are my kids going to be okay? Am I going to get married someday? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? And how much of it is when the worry crosses the line, and we really need to get it into mental health care to really address it in a much more systematic way. A lot of people don't know where that line is, and it's not that cut and dried, so it's going to vary from person to person.
You can watch that series and more at MedCircle.com. And tonight, Dr. Ramani and more of our MedCircle doctors will be doing a live panel that you can register for using the links below. This will give you a chance to submit your questions and interact with other participants. We hope to see you there. Dr. Ramani, on the topic of introversion, are introverts more likely to experience social anxiety?
Probably yes. In fact, that's what the research would suggest. Yes, because at some level, for the natural introvert, being put into social situations is going against what it is they want to do, right? So there's a little anxiety. There's going to be some discomfort and worry about doing something that you don't feel good about. And so there might be some sort of anxiety about that. But introverts don't necessarily have that feel of social scrutiny. They don't necessarily have that fear that people are going to criticize me. It's a preference. Right now, one thing we know, and I've talked about my graduate student, Irene Hernandez's thesis project on various MedCircle platforms and conversations. Her research has shown is that, and other people's research has shown, this is just particularly, I'm focusing on hers, is that introversion has different kinds of styles to it. Like there are some introverts who are a little bit anxious. Those anxious introverts are the ones we think of as being sort of social anxiety folks. But there are people out there who are thinking introverts. So they're always in their head. They're looking at a situation, thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And so even if they're in a situation, they're thinking. When they're on their own, they're thinking. And their inner world it's keeping them company, if you will. They're just always thinking. So they're kind of like, they don't feel alone. It's not like this sort of, I need other people to fill the kind of space and time. They don't want that. They're good with their thoughts. So there's different subtypes. I would say the anxious introverts would conform to what we consider more of a social anxiety, but I don't think introversion necessarily means social anxiety.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Now, you've mentioned in the past a stress and anxiety workbook. By any chance, do you remember the title of that workbook?
I don't. If you want me to step away, I could go downstairs. But
well, what we'll do is Dr. Ramani will supply that for us, and we'll include a link to that workbook in the description of this video. It'll probably be an affiliate link to Amazon. So if you use it, thanks for supporting MedCircle. Great. Well, Dr. Ramani, we'll see you tonight to talk more about this and also to talk about strategies to help somebody who's suffering with social anxiety. And if you feel socially anxious, some coping strategies that you may be able to use. I'm Kyle Kittleson. Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.